Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman, and this is my YouTube channel. In the past, when I show code on my channel, people get really excited about my prompt. I get more compliments about my prompt than really anything else. So I brought the man who made the prompt on the show, and we're going to do something cool. We're going to actually modify it, make it super customized. Jan, say hello to the people.
Hi, everybody.
So this is called Oh My Posh, and it's just wonderful. If I go here and say push, and then I'll go over to somewhere else, you see that I've got lots of segments. Here's a segment that shows my path, and here's one that shows my Git branch, one that shows .NET, or it could show Node, or what are some creative things people put in their segments? Jan?
Well, there's basically quite a few. We can add your pods. We can add your Azure subscription contexts. You could add some kubectl information around everything that's running in Kubernetes. We have extensions, or at least segments, for a lot of languages as well. PHP, Java, Go, Python is also in there. You could show whether or not you're the admin on your session right now, your shell session. There's environment variables, a lot, really a lot. And truth be told, there can still be a lot more.
Right. So we don't know how far this can go, right? I mean, there's one that does your battery. There's one that'll tell you what your AWS, your Azure is. There's a weather one.
Yeah,
Now, here's where it
correct.
gets interesting. I was chatting with you last week, and I mentioned to you that I'm diabetic. So I use a tool called Nightscout. This is my blood sugar right now. And just to make it interesting, I had an apple just before we started recording. So we're going to see this change over the course of the next little bit of time, and we're going to see my blood sugar go up, and we'll see my artificial pancreas. I have an open source artificial pancreas adjust my blood sugar as we go. Now, this is called the Nightscout Project, and it is open source, and it's a nonprofit, and I've been involved with this for a very long time. It's wonderful, wonderful team of people. And as such, this is my personal instance of my blood sugar. I have an implant in my body. It sips the interstitial fluid of my body, sends it to my phone. My phone then sends it to the cloud, puts it in Mongo, and it's available here. So I went ahead and made some tokens ahead of time for us. So we have now a JSON API, a REST API for my blood sugar. Okay. So here you can see it's 139. Now, if you're in Europe, that would be a different number. They have, just like we have Celsius and Fahrenheit, blood sugar people have different numbers. But for me, I'm 139. Anything around 100 is good for a diabetic. Mine's a little high because I had an apple. Now, I'm going to go here and say count equals 1. And that's what we're working with, sir. All right.
Yeah.
Serum glucose value, a date string we don't really care about, and then this thing called direction. That's kind of like, are we trending upwards? Are we trending downwards? Yeah. And in the past, I worked with my buddy Nate, and Nate had this project where he had like a Windows service that would run in the background, or a cron job, and it would write to a text file. And then every time you pushed enter, we would load the blood sugar out of the text file. And let me be honest, it was a really elegant solution at the time, but it was a hassle because I'd forget to run the service, or identity would change, and I was doing the caching in a separate out of process, and it was a little frustrating. And then I thought to myself, I should talk to Jan, and we could make this a segment. Can we make a Nightscout glucose management segment? So then I'll go here, and one of these will be my blood sugar.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. It looks the same as the weather segment that we have in terms of functionality. That also it does an API call, retrieves the information, and displays it to the user. Now, when we do HTTP calls, you know that it can be very consuming at times, or at least it could take a lot of time. We don't want to slow down the prompt. So one of the questions that I have for you is, on which interval should we fetch this information? That's maybe the first thing, just to know.
That's a great question.
Because, well, yeah.
Yeah, 5 minutes is the maximum amount of time. So if I'm sitting here and I'm going like this, I'm getting my .NET version. You can see that just a micro pause there. There's about 100 millisecond pause. There's my Git status that's happening, and then there's my my .NET. If I pressed enter and it took, I don't know, a quarter of a second, I might be like, oh, okay, but not every time. Maybe every 5 minutes there's like a moment.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel sad.
Okay, that's good. Well, the good news is we have a caching mechanism built in where we can basically store things to pick up when the prompt is rendered again. We can set that to about 5 minutes as a time to live, and then we're good to go.
Okay. It looks like when I do a curl, 1,000, 1,000, maybe that's a couple hundred milliseconds. Not too bad. Cool.
That's okay. Usually it's the Git segment that's slowing things down a bit if we go into detail.
Unlikely this will be a huge deal, and maybe we'll figure it out if it is. So what I did to save time is I'm going to go ahead and say pop directory and go back to where we were. I went to OhMyPosh. I went to the GitHub repository. I forked it. So this is my fork, clean fork. And then when I looked at the directory here, I noticed that there's a dev container here. This is a thing called Visual Studio Code Development Containers. And that's a thing that's a feature of Visual Studio, which really makes life a lot easier. I wish more people would use it. And inside this dev container is a configuration that describes all the way that you, Jan, want things set up so that I don't have to go and set it up locally. So what's exciting about that is when I opened up Visual Studio Code, it said, hey, do you want me to go and open this in a container, in a Docker container? And then you'll notice down here in the corner, I have whatever you need. You tell me, what did you make me install automatically? Because I didn't have to do anything. Go, Rust, extensions.
So extensions for sure. There are some extensions that we think are useful. Now, I have to give credit to the people who actually contributed to this because I didn't add it myself to the repository. So we have, and I'm going to do a quick shout out to Laurent Nulles. He's also Belgian, but that's purely coincidental. He started working with me on the project, and he was the one who initially added the dev container because obviously he felt the same way as you, like, let's make it easier for people to contribute. So we add Go as a runtime dependency because that's where OhMyPosh is really built in. We now actually also have pre-populated shells for each and every shell that we actually support. So we have Bash in there, we have Fish, ZSH, also Tmux, even though we don't really have a Powerline enabled font for Tmux, but that's something that's in the planning. And PowerShell, obviously. So you could also see the OhMyPosh prompt in each and every one of these. There's even a task where you are able to rebuild it, so you could see, does it really still work everywhere? Because obviously not everybody has access to all of these different environments. So and behavior can be different. So we, in the end, try to tailor it towards, can we make it easier for everybody to contribute? And a dev container for sure is one of these things. Also on GitHub, you press dot, you go to github.dev, and it populates everything from the dev container. Makes it really straightforward for everybody to just get started.
Yeah. That's going to be great. And we can see here in Visual Studio Code, when I say new terminal, those are all those options. PowerShell's our default. And then down here at the bottom, I've already pre-configured my fonts. If yours doesn't look like this, if you're following along and yours looks silly with some squares, that's because you've not customized your terminal font to include the power lines. And there is a couple of rendering issues on Visual Studio Code. You can see there's some weird glyph there, but don't worry about that. If we get it working in this terminal, it'll work everywhere then, won't it? The ZSH people, the Bash people, everybody's going to win. All the diabetics who code. The set of all people who are me will be excited about this, and hopefully maybe a couple of hundred other devs that are diabetic who use Nightscout. Cool. Okay. So you said that this was a lot like the weather one. Should we look at the weather one first? Or
we could have a look. Yeah. So that should be.
It was open weather.
Is it W? Yeah. OWM. That's the one. So you can see if you scroll down, there is, or there
actually, can you take over? Do you have the power? Because you and I are on a live share. Let's see if you're in here as well. So we're using Visual Studio Live Share. I'm in Portland. You're in Belgium, and you might be able to be in here if you're still around.
I am still around, it seems. So let's have a look, because I don't know everything by heart.
Yeah.
Can I take over?
You can click on me and I'll follow you. So I'm going to say live share, and then I'm going to click. There you are. I see you now. That's your cursor, not mine.
Yeah. At the weather. There we go. I'm scrolling now. So that's okay. So let's have a look. Here we have a bit of the same layout. So there's some properties, but we'll get into that in a minute. When we actually, there is the cache timeout is there, as we also mentioned initially.
Yep.
I think I see it. Yeah, online we have it here. Can I
So I'm
highlight
seeing
that
temperature
one?
and weather, and I'm imagining that that's going to be blood sugar and trend line.
Correct.
Things like
Yes.
that.
So it seems like there are a few properties we could reuse. We have units here. Whether or not that's relevant. Cache timeout for sure.
That will be automatic because the server knows that.
Yeah.
And then I know that with the weather, you know the URL because it's the open weather. But in the context of Nightscout, the blood sugar server, everyone will have an own custom one. So that'll be something they'll want to set themselves.
Okay. And then we have the actual response, so the one we would be caching. So there is a difference between, okay, we set the timeout and then we store a certain value with a key. In this case, that's the cache key response that needs to be unique. So there's that, the cache key URL. So we also cache the URL. Suppose your location changes or whatnot. In this case, I don't think it's relevant for our use case today, but here we actually want to know for which city did you actually, or location did you fetch information from. And this allows us to only return the cache value for that specific URL as well, rather than returning the wrong data. But in this case, then we also have some nice little helper structs like weather, which is, you also showed a nice JSON layout that what it returns. So we will be putting that into a struct so that we can work with it. That's what this actually does. And then there are two main interesting functions enabled, which tells us whether or not we should show this segment. In this case, might be all the time. But there could be additional logic in there. For example, the Git segment only shows when you're inside a Git repository. It doesn't really show anywhere else. So that's where that enabled comes
that's
into
a good
play.
point. So you're saying that a segment can decide if it wants to be enabled or
yes,
not.
correctly. Okay. Yeah. So
in this
that
case,
logic is fully in there.
I would want it on all the time. So that's a requirement, I think. Meaning that it would be based on my segment configuration. I've either added the segment or have not.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a return true in this case. We have a few like that as well. Like session, for example, is the same. If you add it to your configuration, we assume you want to show that every time. We just fetch the info and put it in there. And then the second one is string, which basically returns a set of characters that we show in that segment specifically. So there's nothing in here that dictates coloring or whatnot. It's just the information that you would like to show, which could be anything.
I had this idea in my head that when my blood sugar was too high, I would turn things red. But is that something that happens inside the segment, or is it something that we reconfigure outside?
That's a really good question. Initially, it happened inside this segment logic. But what we did, and I'm still working through that as we speak, is we pulled it out. Because as of recently, you can see this below, like here on line 64, we have templating functionality. You can see the logic in there. So what we do is we actually allow you to render the textual output of the segment the way you want it as an end user. Template allows that. So what we will do, we may make all of the properties or the context available. And we have something called background and foreground templates, which is the same logic. So in that, what you can do is for every segment, you could, for example, say, if my value is over X, return this color. If my value is between this and this, return that color. If my value is below whatever, return that color. And you could go fully crazy with all of the properties or all of the context that we expose or that the segment exposes, which we also add to the documentation. And then you can define your own colors, because that's a lot more extensible. Initially, what we did is, you define a bit of logic, but then you also have to expose properties for people to set the colors. Now, if you have a lot of information coming from, for example, in this case, an API, you do not want to extend the code with all of these functionalities. So we pulled that out and we leverage the templating capabilities so that people can be as free as they can.
Gotcha. Okay. So for the requirements for what we're doing tonight, I think it is pretty simple. It's red, yellow, green. And it's, you're having a low blood sugar, and that's concerning. It's a big deal. Everything's good. You're green, and things are kind of getting high. That's maybe yellow. but I love the idea of having them be able to choose. So
Yeah.
it's a simple if, and then
Yes,
they pick their colors.
we can look at the syntax when we are actually at that point, and we
Great.
can enable the segment, and I can give a good example.
I love it.
So in this case, if we take this as an example, there's also a nice get result one, which basically, as you can see, as I mentioned, it fetches the cache timeout that was set by the user, like how long do I want to return the cached value, and it will see if it needs to actually get something or not. Otherwise, it gets the cache value and works from there. So that's how this works.
Cool.
I think we can reuse quite a bit of this logic.
It seems like, you're the creator, but it seems to me we can copy paste this segment, rename
we
it,
could do that,
and slowly take it apart and refactor by copy paste. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I think that will work. This is a really good example. Maybe
Do you wanna
for
keep the
everybody
text
watching
as well?
Yeah, I would. We can keep them because they're in the right format, and we could actually have a look at if we could refactor those. Maybe we could just keep one.
Do you want to start by taking them both, or you want to start by just taking the segment?
Let's take the segment first, and we'll do the test afterwards.
All right. So let's copy paste. We just called that segment OWM. I'm going to go ahead and rename that, and the name of the project is Nightscout. Everyone who knows what Nightscout is will know that name Nightscout, and it will fit nicely in, and then we'll make a Nightscout test later. So that segment is now copied. And then is there anything here? There's a lot of places where you refer to the term OWM. Do we?
So the best thing, we need to rename that one, because otherwise we're going to be in a bit of a pickle.
Is NS okay?
There you need the full name. So if you go to the top, I'm actually there at line 8. I highlighted this for you. That's the struct that we need to rename. So we can name that Nightscout.
All right.
There we go. That's okay. So now we all have to basically reference everything with Nightscout.
Okay.
I will already for you. We can leave the properties in there. I'll remove the struct of the temperature and the weather. Let's
take a look here. This is a code on the right, and then the future JSON the code on the left and the future JSON on the right here. This SGV, it means serum glucose value. All of this information is useful, but in the short term for what we're doing, we will have success if we do direction and the number. Everything else can kind of be like, we can leave it for another day and I'll go off and extend it. But we could just get those two things. That would be a huge win for everyone.
Yeah. So the only thing we need, if we do type, what do we call this little entity?
This Nightscout structure, this one here?
Well, no, the JSON response. How would you call that object?
Oh, it would be a Nightscout response.
Okay, then we can just use that one. So there you go.
And you can type as well, because we're both in the app at the same time.
In the response, what we have, I noticed there is an array initially, right?
That's a great point. So here's the thing. There's an array, but the array in this case here, because the URL that we're going to use has a count of 1. In some future, we could create a spark line and a chart, and we could do all kinds of stuff. But we have an array of one thing. Yes, we do have an array, but it has only one thing in it. Just like similar to the weather, we only care about the first one.
Yeah. So we have a bit of the same structure here. The data would be kept, but then obviously the weather struct. So it's an array of weather. This would then be Nightscout data, maybe an additional struct where we add those true properties in. Then we have the same data structure as what the API returns.
A wrapper, yeah. Nightscout array or something, a Nightscout struct. Okay, if you want to type, I think you're welcome to do that.
I can type, obviously. It's still early in the morning for me, so I'm just going to call that Nightscout data. There we go. Nightscout data, which is also a struct, and we noticed. Can you show me the values again that we want to parse? Oh, so we have SVG. I'm just going to type to go, and direction. That was the other one, and
Right.
that was an enumeration, as you mentioned.
It's an enumeration, right? But it comes back as a string, of course, since it's JSON.
Yeah. Then
and
we'll
I have
treat
those
it as
values.
a string. Yeah.
I have those values in a notepad for later. There's about how many?
So that's a string. SVG is an integer.
There's 7 of them. Yeah, I think that is an integer. It's definitely be it's a number in JavaScript, but it's an integer for what we're doing.
All right, let's go.
And this is very simplistic. Certainly, we'll add, like you said, unit or whatnot somewhere in here. I wonder. The unit is not being expressed here, but we'll figure that out for our European friends soon. But that's a good start.
SGV and direction. So there we go. And then I can say I'm gonna add Nightscout data. My auto-completion.
Auto-completion didn't work?
No, but it's okay. We're there. So basically, we say our response has data. We can remove the temperature, obviously. That's not relevant anymore. There we go. So that's all we have. So
and it's
response
not JSON:weather anymore.
Not true. That's there is no value for that. Basically, let's see how that needs to be done. Should actually just if we can use this as the default in how we parse it rather than the response as a wrapper, because there is no, it's just an array. So that's also what we need to pass rather than a value that contains an array.
Well, so that's my next question. We have all these places where we were pointing this, passing in this originally weather data, which is the single structure. We want to do the same thing here. We want to get it out of the array quickly, just have one, and then that's what we pass around. So when do we eventually kind of like dereference and pull the 0 and that's it?
Yeah, so that we'll do that at the bottom. Let's first rename also all of the others that we have here. Oh, okay. There goes my cursor. Let me check. Online. Well, no, I have a new trackpad and it seems to annoy me. But let's rename all of these little fellas to, what was it, Nightscout then?
Yeah, so I'll do that real quick. And I'm going to do it manually. I recognize that we could do all kinds of refactorings, but in the process, I feel like I'm learning too,
Yeah. In this case, we actually have 2 files with the same struct name, or still functions with the same, and it's going to clash if you do a full rename. Now, you could do it in a file only. That will work. That's not an issue. But, at least you go through all of the information, etc.
Oh, and I just realized something. So in the context of what we're not going to handle the full unit issue yet, because I have to figure out how to do that. But this unit icon thing, there is metric. Metric over here is MMOL, and imperial is MGDL. That's how we think about things in the blood sugar world. The only difference here is that I am not seeing in Nightscout where that's being returned. I'm sure there's some configuration. Maybe in the short term we can have a property, or the user can configure it as a choice, and then later we'll figure out how to learn it.
That's also in the templating functionality. You could actually add your own icon. It doesn't really matter where. There are a few options there.
It's why they're mad at me about that.
We have. Let's first see if we could get the data.
Okay. Now we'll see where you went. So we're in live share. So I'm going to go and find you.
Yep. So what you did initially, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, I just changed the types there.
But you changed them to Nightscout data, which is the.
Oops. Did I make a mistake?
Don't worry. No, it's okay. That's why I fixed it. So we can actually remove the set status one. That can be gone. That doesn't need to be there anymore. Okay. We also missed one interesting function all the way at the bottom at 112, which is initialization. So for everybody following along, if you look at how the segment logic is built, it's actually an interface. So init, string are relevant because initialization will actually get the property. So if you set a configuration for your segment, the properties is where all of these values will be in. So if you set specific icons, some switches, whatnot, that will be in there. And then we have environment info, which is also an interface to allow you to interact with the system. So if you want to do a GET request or whatever, that will be an environment. That one is basically the portal to the outside world, which we can then also mock if we want to unit test and fake everything that we would like to see how does it behave the way we intend it to be. So the segment is basically as silly or as dumb as can get. And every low-level logic is abstracted away for anything that segment does.
That makes sense.
We
So
keep it that way.
For people who don't understand Go, so in this context, environment is effectively like it's not even an interface. It's just here's everything I know, anything that you might need, so that, like you said, when you do the testing, you get mocking for free, and you just pass in whatever you want. So then it seems like the segment is just a series of functions that can be called from the outside. The outside might be OhMyPosh itself, or it might be a unit test driver. It might be whatever.
Correct.
Great.
So let me check what we did. So we actually have a response, but I'm going to work differently there. We have the string logic, but we'll keep it as is for now. The thing that matters to us the most is the get result one, because we would actually need to query the API.
Right, and this is wrong here. OWM data response, because that's now Nightscout response, right? Or you called it.
I would actually return the single value, so return the Nightscout data, because that's what we're interested in. So the response is, I think we're going to remove it because that's an intermediate step for us, at least. I mean, we care about that first block in the array. That's what
all we care about. You're right.
Yeah. So let's just return what did we call it? Nightscout data one.
That's we have Nightscout data and we have Nightscout data response. The response is the envelope.
Yeah, I'm gonna remove response and we're just gonna work with the array. So I just did that. That way nobody gets confused anymore.
Interesting. So you're going to pull it into an anonymous array and get it out of there quickly. That way we don't even think about it.
Correctly. Yeah, we don't really care about the array. That's just waste in our.
And these things here that are complaining to us, these unit icons and stuff, that's because we pulled them out of the structure. We'll figure that out.
Correct. Later. Yeah, we'll do that later. So let's first see. We can comment those out, but see if we can fetch the data first. That would be interesting to identify. So we have the cache timeout. We could leave it for now. Sure. There's a default cache timeout. You said, I went to the other.
For what we're doing, it'll be 5 minutes, but we can set it to a second for the testing process.
Yeah. So cache timeout is, if I'm not mistaken, in seconds. I need to check. I need to cheat here. I don't remember. Let's go to my own documentation site. It's funny that you have to Google your own stuff, but that's how things work.
That's part of life.
I guess so.
So here we go.
Let's have a look at you. Where do we open weather map? What did it say? Cache timeouts.
The default is 10 for that in the sample.
Interesting.
Default is 10 minutes. Value of 0 disables the cache.
Yeah, seems like it's missing some information there. Great.
No worries. Close enough.
There goes my own documentation. Let's. I think I documented somewhere, but I don't remember where exactly. So there. Oh yeah, I know where. In the store somewhere. We'll figure it out. Let's keep it as is, and we'll figure that out later. Okay. So if we look now, let me see if I can see your screen again. There we go. Here is the response at line 70. So that's the one we don't have anymore, or at least it still exists because it's still in the code base, obviously. That's why it doesn't error, but that's not the one we care about.
Well, and it's pulling OWM data response from elsewhere. So that's not the right type currently.
No, it's not. But let me maybe comment it out so we can see where we need to change it. It will check if there is a cache timeout set. That's what the line below does on 71. If it does, then they'll get it with the key. In this case, that's still wrong, so we need to create our own key for this. But given that I don't think we have, or at least in the default config, that one segment, we can for the sake of time, reuse that one for now.
Is your thinking that we might be that the cache key for weather and Nightscout would be the same accidentally?
Yeah, that's something that shouldn't be happening, because then we're going to end up in a really weird world. So we'll need to change that to our own value. But we can do that later.
Yeah.
If it finds something in the cache, that's what it does, or at least it says on 75. We'll try to.
So cache key response is OWM response in the const. So we'll change those consts.
Yes.
Right.
Indeed, we can do that. If it finds it, it will actually unmarshal it to that response value. In our case, that would then be, if I change that correctly, let me see. That's what it said initially. Let me copy paste the right name, because my autocomplete somehow here doesn't feel like working. There we go. So what I did is at line 76, what we get back is that array that with a single element. So let's also make sure we parse it as such. So in this case, we do it like that.
Right.
And everything else.
You want to cache just the single element, not the entire response from the server.
No, I can cache the entire response. That way, our logic stays the same regardless.
Right, but I'm pointing out that this is the single element. If you cache the entire response, then you unmarshal it into a single element. That'll fail.
Yeah, so here true. We could actually say,
basically, when you're doing this, it's like, I just got this raw value from the server. Do I cache that? And then everywhere else downstream, I pull out one. Or do we pull it back from the server, get the one out we want quickly, and we forget there ever was an envelope? It doesn't really matter which way we do it. You just need to decide.
There we go.
Just do it once?
Oh, I would do it once. Then we can just return it as such as well. Oh,
okay.
There we go. Absolutely right. So here we go. And we actually don't want to return this little fella, but we're going to return Nightscout data at line 68. So it's changing the function signature then.
Got it.
Works perfectly. So there we go. Good suggestion. See, this pair programming saves us a review.
I'm sure it'll run on the first try too.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's how these things go. So we reuse the keys for now. That's fine. We actually said, okay, I want to return that. Get the response back, which is set to Nightscout data at line 70. So that's okay.
Actually,
and then
while we're doing that, I'm going to do a couple of things, because I'm on the exact same file, split screen. This is another example. I want people to look at this, not just as a fun way to learn OhMyPosh and make something for the Nightscout community, but also in this context, we're in the same file, same editor on one machine, two guys, two keyboards, same file. And I'm just going to change those cache things because I don't want to forget.
Actually, what we could do before you... now that I see this, I realized we might have made a mistake in reviewing this little addition, because cache key URL, you have to see this as it's a property or a part of your segment configuration.
Right.
So the key could be the same for both the weather
it's
segment.
Scoped.
It's scoped. Yeah.
Okay.
So
really,
this
is
really
just
matter.
unnecessary.
Yeah. Well, in this case, no, and then we just rename it because it doesn't really matter, but we can keep it the same.
Yeah.
It's then going to be weird that there is going to be an OMW or OWM reference in that
I thought that
key
the
name.
cache, I thought that the env.cache was a global shared cache across all segments, and you could transfer information between segments by using the same key. Sounds like it's not, so no worries.
No, it's not. You can see that if you did the split screen, so you could see that it actually fetches the value from the properties on line, here we go, 69.
Yep.
So it uses the properties specifically to the segment, so they're perfectly scoped within the context of the segment. So we have to rename that. I'm going to do that afterwards. That's a good change. And then we keep things a bit more generic. So, but that's how you learn. You think you found all the use cases, and then you find the next one and your assumptions are challenged. So we could also keep API key that way. We can remove API key, location, units, cache timeout. We can do all of that. I think we can just remove all of those properties in this context because we will be reusing them anyway, and they are going to be the same ones.
Cool.
So don't you can act your you can add it there as a constant. That's a good idea.
I'm just doing it like this in the short term because I don't want to go and be in the business of creating URLs and parts, and putting them together. Ultimately, we could, if we wanted to. Let me close this and go back up there. We could say, give us your server name, and then suddenly we're responsible for HTTPS or not, what version of the API, and we're going to build that whole thing. Most Nightscout people who are going to be working at the command line like this, all they need to do is just give us a URL, the token, which they know how to do already, and it's one line, and we don't have to be suddenly writing 30 lines of how to build a URL correctly. Plus
that's
validation.
A really good one because
I really believe
that's
strongly
something
in responsibility.
Let's have a look if we already have a
just
URL
getting rid of all the things
somewhere.
we don't care about, So like this units concept, like units and units icon. So units for us here is going to be this MGDL. That's the thing we were talking about, imperial or not. I think we came down here later and we said imperial or metric. Honestly, we should just torch all of that too, and we'll just call it units. So we'll have this concept of units. I'll fix this later. Property is your thing, right? That's you just call them properties.
We call them properties. Yeah, that's just a specific type. It's actually just a string for the sake of in Go. You have this ability to create your own custom types, which allows us to also be type safe. Whenever you would like to request something, we want you to also create a property rather than pass a string along. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then we'll go like this.
Yeah, they can all be removed.
Units. This is your glucose units, your complete Nightscout URL and API key. And then those are both called properties. And then we've got our, now I've done something wrong here because unit isn't really a thing.
That's no, just it's already existent. So the only thing we would need is the URL for now.
Okay, so we'll worry about that later.
We can remove all of those. So all of them can be removed because
even the cache.
Even the cache. We can remove some properties from the other one. So all we need is the URL property, which in this case, it contains your actual value, but we would need to give it a property name. So the URL would be the value. So maybe we should have a look at how these are built. If you go to the documentation, then I can show you right away. That might make it easier for everybody to understand. If you scroll up, you can see in the sample configuration that we have properties, and that those are actually the property types that we now want to create. So there's API key, location, those are the ones we saw. So what we need in our case, in our specific use case, we would need the URL that you also just added, but then we give the property is the key name. So rather than the value, we give it
okay, so that would be your Nightscout URL.
Yeah, Nightscout URL could be a good one, but let's make it generic and just call it URL because it's always in the context of the scoped context of the Nightscout segment. So if people then see properties URL, obviously that implies that it's the Nightscout URL.
Okay, so help me understand here. We've got capital URL, lowercase URL. Is this a type now? The URL is a string, and this is a string.
Let me help you.
I got a little confused in my go of it all.
That's okay.
Okay, so it is a property is the type then.
So property is a type. URL is the name of this specific property, and then rather than adding rather than adding the URL in there, we will just give it this value. So what this does,
got it,
is it will now be called, if we look then in the JSON representation of the configuration, there will be properties and then a key URL, and we add our value, which is the URL that we initially added there. So there, rather than
the URL string, it'll say
it will be there. Yes.
Okay. Got it. And I see. If I went even more, if I was going to be even more specific, Be like this.
Yeah, but then it's important to understand, and this is a good one because we see people struggle with that sometimes as well. This is documentation purposes, so we can do that later. So if we want to, this is maybe not a lot of people know that we have a JSON schema, which if you hover over something, that will show you the context. And in this case, you really want it to be the actual key value. So that would be here, like URL. That's actually what it's then going to be for everybody. If we want to add some additional context, we can do that in the schema so that if people hover over that property, they can see that it's the Nightscout URL, maybe with an example or whatnot. We can extend that later. So now we have, let me see, we have a URL. That's what we need. We can basically query that.
Yep.
We have that string value, which let's comment this out. Okay, in 32. So if you scroll down, there we go. I commented this out because we're not there yet. We don't really have that yet.
Sure. We can just focus on getting a number really right now.
Yeah, indeed. Let's just focus on that first. So on 44, I noticed there was still an issue. I changed the values to the Nightscout struct that we actually created. So let me do that.
And there's of course some still weather stuff up there at the top somewhere.
Yeah, the weather stuff is in the template, so we'll remove that. We can do that also later. So now our string function seems okay. We then have the get result one, where if we scroll to 75, so I'm there.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to following you.
Yeah, that would be great. You see that we have that API key, the location units, the timeout. That's fine. Let's reuse the timeout. So what we do is when you do an HTTP call, this can take quite a while. And we set the default to 20 milliseconds because API should be rather fast, but that's not always the case. Why do we do that? Because people often don't like their prompts being slow. They hit enter, needs to be there. And things like this can significantly slow everything down. So if the timeout gets hit, we just drop the call and we hide the segment. If you do, we have that functionality in PowerShell called write push debug. You can see whether or not that was the case. So if you ever have strange behavior in your prompt or you don't see what you would expect to see, write push debug in PowerShell will basically print everything that OhMyPosh is doing in terms of interacting with the system. So the logic of the segments will not be in there, but you will see what is displayed, what was enabled, what was not enabled, and what it was doing in order to decide whether or not to enable. So that's a great help, to be honest. Okay, so we keep the timeout because that's relevant. We will remove some of the other properties.
And we can get rid of the API key because we're going to build it into the URL for simplicity's sake.
So let's get that URL.
Yeah, so our URL is called URL. And then that means the sprintf and all of that work that we were doing here on line 77 to go and create a URL. We're just going to make that simple. And again, everyone's different. With the Open API example, it makes sense because sprintf is taking location and units and API key. In the context of the Nightscout personal user, they have, here's the URL. And not every Nightscout user has an API key. Some run an open server. This will make it flexible that it'll just work because we're not passing our API keys in the headers. So it's nice and simple.
There we go. So we only need a URL. We have that timeout in there. We'll just say, call the URL, please. Thank you very much. We will be fetching.
Now you've been using ns dot and ns dot props, but then you've got d dot environment. Which one is D?
Yeah, the D is still wrong. So the D comes from we copy pasted. The other implementation, and the D was basically the struct from the previous one. So changing all of those, so they should all be NS because that's our current struct.
Yeah, so we're
there you go.
two
Perfect.
folks on two keyboards here, and then I noticed that we still have an OWM data response right there. So
yeah, we'll just return a Nightscout data response. There we go.
I know that I know that my Visual Studio Live Share came out before the pandemic, but I really feel like this is a great example of what what people don't do enough of, which is we're in a container. We have all of our tools set up. It took me 5 minutes to get started. We added you to the live share, and here we are, 9 time zones away, like editing the same file. You know what I mean? It's like Google Docs for code.
I have to admit it's pretty cool, and I've been thinking of actually helping people out this way. Rather than the reviews sometimes take a really long time, and it can be a very daunting process, especially in a fully asynchronous remote world. So time is always a bit of a problem. So we have, let's have a look. So that's all been done right. So here we have that URL, which was cached, but that's not relevant. Yeah, but that's not relevant in our case.
We don't need to cache the URL.
No, because we have direct access to the URL. We don't really need it. So we can remove line 69.
These are cache. So these are cache keys. You're using the cache key for the response. Anything else doesn't really matter. So we're not really reassembling this part here.
I would use our URL that we already have access to, because people need to set it anyway, as the cache key to retrieve the value. That will always be unique, right?
It will be unique, 100% unique, and it will not change.
Yeah, so that's definitely, I think, the way to go here.
It's a good idea.
If our JSON
we don't
accepts
need that key at all.
That as a key. I know it can do funky things.
No, that's a perfectly good URL. That URL will not change, and it will be a constant in this context.
Yeah, so let's just drop that. We'll see what we missed along the way. So let's go back. When it sets the cache, it actually wants to set the URL. So we will basically populate that with our URL then. In that case, we need to do one.
I don't think we need line 88 at all. We need to use the URL on line 87 as the key, and we can torch line 88. I know it's like midnight for me and it's like 7 a.m. for you. So between us, one of us is awake. If you combine us into one awake person.
So you are absolutely right. We can just combine it as such. I just did that. I don't know if you're still following along.
Yeah, of course. I hope the friends are still listening.
Yeah, and then we only have one line. There we go.
And then where did you decide your key would be named? Because I see that you're using the key, but we haven't actually picked it yet. That would be the URL, correct?
Yeah, but indeed I typed key because morning for me, evening for you. But look at that. Pair programming wise.
Yeah.
We hit the sweet spot.
We would say ns.url.
No, we don't have that property. So you could just reuse the URL that's at 73. We fetch it live from the properties. We have it at that point in time. We can just put it there. Now, the only thing that we would need to do is it will fetch the data, but the response is going to be Nightscout data, and that's going to be wrong. So
this is where we do that thing where we need to pull the single thing out and decide, are we going to cache the whole response, or are we going to do a little bit of parsing and then do it? Because if we do a little bit of parsing, then we made a utility function basically to do that, right? De-enveloping. And then again, just while you're thinking about that, for context for our friends that are still following along, this here, if I pass in count equals, let's say 4, I can see 4 blood sugars. But for our segment that we're making here, we're just going to have 1, but it's 1 that will always live and exist inside of a envelope. But that envelope is just going to be annoying. We're going to be dealing with that envelope constantly. It's just an annoyance. So we have this interesting thing where we've got the not yet fixed Nightscout structure up here, which we need to kind of clean up. I don't think that really needs to be there at all. Actually, this is the thing that I realized that looking at this, we're being sloppy, and I think it may be early in night kind of a situation. This is really not needed. We need, where's the one that's the array? We're going to hide that. We're not even going to do it.
Well, right? You need the Nightscout struct anyway, because that's our segment definition.
And we need to move SVG and direction up here, right?
What we do, if we want to immediately also leverage the, let me scroll up for you a bit.
Yes, sir.
So actually what Now I can see.
You see the
This is
problem?
perfect. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah, so
not
we
a
can
problem.
torch Nightscout data, just go with straight Nightscout, and then get rid of everything after line 11, and we're better.
That could also work. Yes, it will parse directly in it. That's also a good idea. Let's do it
Okay,
that
so
way.
we'll get rid of this.
But then let me make
And
this
then
clean.
we need to get rid of. So then the second that we get the body back, we pull it out of the array. We pretend it never existed.
We can, but we need to populate. It doesn't really matter because in the end, what happens is this: you get an array of structs of objects, right? There's only one in there, but that doesn't really matter as far as JSON is concerned. The definition is an array. Could be one, could be multiple objects in there.
Right.
So we need to actually parse it that way first anyway, and then populate the right values into Nightscout, because we need to take the first one. In this case, then whether that's the first Nightscout object or another one.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, whether we're taking
it's
the
a bit
first
debatable, right? Because we still need to. I would keep, and this is where it's interesting. I would keep those values on Nightscout anyway, because that will allow us to leverage the templating capabilities. So we could try it this way. It doesn't really change a lot. Let's go.
This is what we're passing around then, right? We have this NS Nightscout. I'm just wondering if we're reusing our names too much.
No, it's okay.
And then we have Nightscout data down here.
I would keep the data just for simplicity's sake.
I'll put that back.
Just
so
put
then
it back.
the question is
there
then,
we go.
do you want to do it like
we
that?
remove this. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, what we will do is we'll remove that. So our Nightscout data is just an intermediate object that will help us parse the information from the API.
Okay.
We know it's an array with one element. That's the assumption. Let's go with the assumption for now. We can make it safe later in case that would not be true. But for now, let's do it that way. So what we do in a logical order, we will fetch that array with one or multiple objects. Depends. If people make a mistake, for example, in the URL, it could be that we have more than one object in there. So let's go with that. We have the array. We will fetch the first element. That's the one we care about. And then we will also use that one to populate the actual values here on our Nightscout struct, which is the one we're in, which is our segment logic. That way, for the templating functionality, for colors, etc., and everything that follows, this data can be used for additional logic. Okay. So if I scroll down again, so we still have Nightscout data here. Let's have a look. So we get a response back. This is where we do the actual HTTP call, which is an array of Nightscout data. So that's where we also need to. That's
a great point, because we have that count equals 1 effectively hard coded here. They may not include that. They may put a different account, and that'll be a thing that they might make a mistake on. Doing it your way will be cleaner because it'll allow n number, and we'll just take the 0 with 1, the first one.
Yeah. Let me check how that needs to be done, because my knowledge of everything is not that fine. So
arrays
Go tells me, the non-pointer as a second argument. That's fine, but the array should be actually already a pointer. Let's
pointers to arrays and Go. Pretty good. We got this far without Googling for stuff.
Yeah, now we need to figure it out. Because
if anybody makes it 45, 50 minutes into it, Golang pointer to an array as a function assignment. Yeah, pointer. I think it's isn't it pointer bracket bracket type? So it's star. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but it should be.
The part that I'm a little challenged by right now is we're not getting really good. We're not getting really good IntelliSense right now from the Go.
Yeah, those are things it will not autocomplete for you. Let me quickly check that.
Okay, so you're
obviously there is. There we go.
So we need to change this here.
Okay, gotcha.
This is going to become the array here.
Yeah, I know what I need to do. And then star. It's got data. And then we can do the pointer.
Oh yeah, dereference it. I got you.
There
Okay,
we
that
go.
cleaned that up. So then if you go back up to the top, though, a Nightscout data doesn't shape correctly right yet.
Which one? Help me out
So
here.
back up here, this is our structure. This is wrong because
That's
that's going
okay.
to be.
No, we're gonna keep that. I'll
We
show
are going
you.
to keep that.
I'll
Oh,
show
I
you what
thought
we're
you were
gonna
going
do.
to. I thought you were going to put a Nightscout data inside here and
No,
put an array of them.
no. What we want is that people in the template are able to just type .sgv or .direction and then
Right.
work with it. So we need it directly in the segment struct. Nightscout is our
Oh,
segment struct.
the
So what we
segment
will do
struct.
is we will parse the information, get the first element, and then we will populate the values of that temporary Nightscout data struct into our main struct. The inheritance in Go inhibits us from actually embedding a struct directly inside a struct. That works, but those properties are only available privately, so they're not publicly exposed,
Okay.
which is
Okay.
annoying. Otherwise, it would be a lot simpler, but maybe for the next version of
No,
Go,
that I
they
get it.
fix that
So you're
for us.
you're kind of projecting at this. You've made a projection, a view
Indeed.
model, effectively, of the segment.
Yeah, indeed. So we're almost there, though. It's coming along rather nicely. So
It
the
is.
only thing we need to know, it is. So we actually, in the get result one, we just return Nightscout data. That's perfectly fine. We have a cache timeout. The only thing we would need to do is, if I hack it in there, what we
Yeah, you
would
got to
do
pull out number 0 at some point.
is
ARR at
and then sorry. There we
There you
go.
go.
So that's actually what we want. So this
Yep.
is the
And
first
that's
element of that array.
hanging in there would be SGV.
Yeah, indeed, correctly. So now, obviously, doing it like this is not going to be okay, but that's going to be for our test results, right? We can definitely.
Fine for now. I mean, here's the deal. It's always going to have at least one. Mistakes that the user could use would be to add no count equals, which would cause 50 to be returned or something, and that would make the thing slow. There's really no reason. One other argument. In a perfect world, we would teach this about Nightscout URLs. We would put the count equals 1 there ourselves. We'd enforce it. We'd check for it, and we'd enforce it. We'd go back to the business of building URLs, which I was trying to avoid.
I agree. Now, in the end, if it doesn't really, oh wait, let's pop. Let's do that here. No.
And for folks that watch my channel and think about things like C#, marshal and unmarshal in this context are more like serialize and deserialize, as opposed to marshaling that we think about things like in COM or in Go. Some familiar things and some unfamiliar things, because I'm a former C programmer. All of my languages are curly brace languages, so this is feeling very much like I don't know, speaking Spanish with an Italian accent here.
To be honest, in Go, and that was one of my. I also did C# first and a lot. And interfaces in Go are the other way around. They're implicit rather than explicit. So you define something if one of the structs has the same functions, check.
So if it just lines up nicely, the names are fine.
Yeah, indeed.
So they were going to call that, I think there was a thing called assembly neutral interfaces in C#. It never actually happened. It's like, if you have a first name and a last name and you do too, you're the same type. Good job.
Indeed. And initially for me, that was weird. But once you get used to it, it's so powerful because you don't worry about anything anymore. You can extend whatever to whatever interface and you're good to go. So there's a lot of value in that, especially also in mocking. Anyhow, two old men rambling about languages. So what we need to do to set the cache is we also want to return an error if we cannot send it. So in this case, I will just say if we can't set the cache for the time being, also error, because we want that to work. And otherwise we can use...
that one was, there you go, first data.
So this one, that's because we want to persist, in this case, the byte value, or no, the string value.
So you've just pulled it out of the array and you're going to turn around and put it right back into JSON again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Initially, in the weather app, you could just get the response directly and put it in there because you work with the same thing. But in this
Right.
case, we work with something else. Now
Yeah,
we
it's
could
a
decide to not do that, and then we only change the top part when we get
right.
the pop pop pop
It's
where
a
we
little
here.
sad what's going on here. Like, just to talk about this for those early in career people who might be watching this. So you're getting a string here, or in this case, a byte array. You're then deserializing it into JSON, into the body. Then you're using the power of the JSON understanding that Go has to pull the 0 with 1 out because it's easier than parsing the string yourself. And then you take the result and you turn around and you serialize it again as JSON. So there's a little bit of a like left,
So
right, left, right,
we
left, right.
we can fix that if the only
Well,
thing
let's
we
get
need
it
to
working first. That's an
change.
optimization. This is
Yeah,
one of the things you were joking about, two old fellows talking about
that's
languages.
true.
Get it to work first and then worry about you making it fast.
Yeah, indeed. I think we're actually good to go here.
What is the couple of orange ones here? We got a couple of orange. What does that orange
Yes,
mean?
that it's not being used,
Oh, okay.
which is true because if you hover over it, I can see it if I hover
It's
over it.
not
I don't
being
know.
used
You
by
can't.
us, but it might be called elsewhere because you're going to call into this, right?
Yeah. So what happens is initially those structs are not used. So maybe we should go and have a quick look at the contribution documentation because it will tell you exactly what to do in this case now.
Okay. So I'm going to hit Control P and I'm going to type contributing.md and then I'm going to go like this, which is going to turn it into a preview on the side here. And then we've got our markdown on the left and our preview on the right so we can see exactly what's going on, right?
Yes.
So
Nice.
did the dev container, don't really need to do the time zone, but whatever. Down here, you see at the bottom, I'm going to move us off to the corner. We can see that inside of the terminal here, the default terminal, he has a pre-configured tester here. So we're going to be testing our stuff in the bottom here in a second. So it says here we want to rebuild the container, configuring the container, recompiling within. Pre-installs the latest one, but then we go dev container build, and then here it said OMP. Is that the weather thing, or is that something? What does OMP
No,
mean?
that's
That's
OhMyPosh.
OhMyPosh. So we
That's
would say,
we might want to rename that one.
it just took me a second. So you would say probably Control Shift B. Is that going to go build?
Oh wait, I need to
Use the
There we go.
VS Code task.
So you want to invoke a task. There
Is it like this? Or I can't remember. I always forget, is it the bracket thing or is it a task is,
let me check.
I get confused. So we want to do a task and there's always the VS Code tasks here. Task shall go build OMP, kind build, right?
So you need to select run build task. In my case, that's going to be Shift.
Oh, here it is. Run build task. Control Shift B.
There we go. Yeah, and there you can see it. It's the first one.
Okay. So when I did Control Shift B before, it actually worked theoretically. So here we go. Now we got some actual problems, which is good.
Yeah, but the problems are mainly
all small
comments. That's not going to be
So is this compiled on the first try?
Yeah, there's no errors anymore.
Fancy.
The only thing that we now have is that we created a segment definition. So some logic, and in this case, it will fetch the data from the Nightscout URL. It will bring it back, and we can do something with it. That all works. That's nice. Now, I do think, the get result one is not used yet. That we need to fix, but let's worry about that in a second. Because
so this one here, when we're looking back in this prompt, this one that was made for us, I'll make it a little bit bigger. That prompt, what is the definition and how do we get our segment in there?
Yeah, so we need to figure out where it gets its information from.
Probably somewhere as it relates to the dev container.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the dev container. I'm going to close a couple of things just because it's getting a little out of hand. And I'm doing things as a big font because I want to make sure our friends can see this okay. We have OhMyPosh, should have a Docker file, default Posh theme. It's using the theme.
Yeah, that's going to be mine. And 9 out of 10, we can double check. That's going to be the one that's in themes.
Then we probably change that just temporarily and then change it back to not check it in.
Yeah, or we could just change that. Yeah, indeed, I would do that. Just change the theme directly and not checking it. We can double check if we alter this directly. Let's maybe change so the session one is the first segment that now says VS Code in the front. We could maybe change that background to something else and see if we actually is this one, then we at least are sure. So
here we've got a background of that one, and we'll go ahead and change that to like all red. Red, green, blue.
I'm amazed, Scott.
You don't have hex in your head?
No, I don't.
That's the only thing I have. That's my only ability at this point. I have no other nothing else I can do, I'm afraid.
Let's see.
So let's see if this works. Okay, I'll come back over here. Press enter. Nothing happened. So do we need to, let's go back to contributing. Do we need to do something to do that, or is it going to just pick up the same? How do I know which OhMyPosh am I using?
If it will always reload the config that it uses, always. So if we edit the right file, it will always be changed because it's read on every run.
Okay, so OhMyPosh version.
Let me have a quick look. Your shell was PowerShell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me do a quick cheat sheet here.
Okay.
So what does the Docker file do?
If the compile succeeds, OhMyPosh version will reply development.
Okay. I figured it out. So
yes, sir.
What it does is it also copies all of the themes inside of the container.
So I'm probably not making the edit where I think I'm making the edit.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. So I'm just quickly glancing through it, and I remember this being a discussion.
Oh, that's an interesting point, because look,
when we
see.
Yeah.
So that means, does that mean that I need to make the change and then do the build and it copies it over?
There is an environment property called Posh Themes root, which, and this is Bash. And what does it?
I don't think that does. So hang on a second. That doesn't quite make any sense, because the person who made this would be thinking about this is fast. Mm-hmm. So indeed, if I make the change here, let's go back to this one here, and we have some leading diamond, and I can add the text test.
Mm-hmm. Right. You could.
And then indeed, I can hit Control-Shift-B, which I would assume at this point would copy the themes over as well.
Yeah, it doesn't do that. I just checked.
So I would need to rebuild. Okay, so your point is he did the rebuild of the containers once.
No, you don't need to rebuild. We just need to find the right theme, and it's actually in there. So there is an environment variable, at least in the container here, called Posh Themes root. Let me help you with
Posh underscore themes.
No, Posh Themes is one word, and then underscore root.
Okay. So it's Posh Themes underscore root.
Yeah, and that one is, where is it at?
So I'm going to go and say, this is a PowerShellism, echo environment, Posh Themes underscore root.
Yeah, and that should be, it does that in the Bash one then, apparently. That's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't appear to be a thing here, but what we can do is go here and say, show all environment variables PowerShell. Back in the day, it used to be env something else. I forgot how to do it in PowerShell core, which is what we're doing now. Do you know? It used to be a disk drive. Like you used to go env :
yeah,
and those days are over.
I type $env : and it auto completes everything.
Yeah, I did that too, and I got those.
There you go. So those are the ones that we have here, but it does, so it's in there actually. But
yeah,
it's what I can see is that the themes, and that's definitely something to change.
Oh, there it is.
Or there you go. So
I don't know why it didn't work the first time.
Yeah. So if you could actually open the Dobbeleer theme from there in this case. So
let's do it.
You could, I think you can even open directly in Visual Studio Code.
Oh, that was a mistake.
No, don't worry about it.
I can open it directly?
Yeah, you should know if you type code. I would expect, and this is a good test, in my dev container, I would expect if I now in the terminal type code, So
Oh,
in
I know,
the
yeah.
terminal window itself. Oh, there
You're
you go.
right.
Does that
Look
work?
at that.
Nice. And there we go.
That's
That's even
sweet.
better.
You know what they call
So
that? There's a thing in software engineering, sir. It's called the principle of least surprise.
yeah,
You said it
that's
should work that way.
it should
So
work. It should work. So you don't need to rebuild because you could just change this file and then press enter again in your terminal, and the next line should then have the changes in there.
Enter. Red. Give it to me. Give it to me. Boom.
There you go. See, voila, there we
That's
are.
hotness.
So
All
that's
right,
the one we can work with.
So
Now,
let's make
that's
the
definitely an
session one.
improvement
Let's
point
make the
here.
session one the Nightscout one.
Yeah, there's one thing we still need to do though.
Uh-oh.
It compiled correctly. That's good. That's
Okay.
nice. What we didn't do is tell OhMyPosh, or at least in the code, that we need to also give that a name. Like we have a type here. If you look at the definition of the segment, it has a type with a value. In this case, it's session. We didn't do that yet for our segment. So where that is stored, and we have a contributing guide on OhMyPosh.dev, which tells you about adding a segment. So this is contribution basically getting up and running.
Okay.
And then there's also a contribution guide on how do I create a segment. So we can close configuration, close segments, contributing, has add segments perfectly. So you can see this is the first thing that we did now. We built all of that logic that's there. That's fine. And this is the next part. So in segment.go, we need to also create that segment type. So we can either copy that value, go to segment.go. Maybe let me see if I can.
Control Z, segment.go.
There we
Interesting.
go. Every time I say go and writing go,
it is a little weird to say go and go and go many times.
So let's open that one again. The bottom one.
The tidy up here.
Yeah, and here we have all of these. So this is a segment that's not relevant for our case. Those are just the things that we also see in the configuration. But here, this is where it matters. So
just get involved here somewhere.
Indeed, you can just add a line below and then create maybe the Nightscape one, a Nightscout. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also segment type. Indeed. Nightscout. Perfect. That's the first thing to do. Now, if we go back to the documentation, we can see the next steps. Okay, that's done. We need to map it. So also there in map with segment writer is at the bottom. There we go. You see they're all here. So we just add one line, Nightscout, and then same. Use the ampersand as well.
I guess we're doing spaces today. I'm not sure.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. You could. It will auto format for you if you press save normally.
Okay.
And then a colon at the end.
Right.
Comma. Sorry, at the end. Yeah, comma.
Trailing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, trailing comma. That's convention in Go. Go is pretty opinionated about how it wants to be structured. And then, so we did that. That should be it, right? So what we now have, but we need to do one more thing because I did a small review while we were going through it. What we did is we defined get result here in our struct, but we didn't really call that yet. We don't do anything with that information. So in Nightscout, if we, let me just remove the commented out parts in string. Maybe you can follow along with me again.
Okay, so let me go and find you and find live share. And I'm just going to make sure I right click follow participant.
There you go.
Now I'm following you.
So what we have is we decided to always make it enabled.
Right. We never did the segment here.
No, that might not be a good idea because
this is all weather.
You know, I'll tell you why. If we scroll down in the get result part, we, based on the response that we get, we also might error because something is off. Maybe you added the wrong URL. We don't really reach what we need. There's a timeout, whatever, could be many things. So in this case, I would actually do calling the data in enabled. So we could say, let's oh, there we go. Oh my God. That's I don't know if you installed it, Scott, but that was my good friend GitHub, what's the name of the tool once again? My mind is a blur.
Oh, GitLens.
No, not the GitLens, the AI auto-completion on steroids. Copilot, thank you very much. It just knew what I wanted to do.
Did it really? Oh, wow.
It did. Yeah, it did. I don't think you saw it. I was typing and it said, "You probably want to do this, Jan. Don't worry, I've got you." So it was completely right.
That's cool.
So what we will do is we will fetch that data from the API. We put it in here, and we will return then true, or at least that's not what we're gonna do. We're gonna say
it's enabled only if it worked.
If it worked, right? The only thing that we now need to do,
you mean
remember,
nil
we
rather, right?
yeah,
Nil.
we initially added the same properties also to our segment struct, so that they can be used. So the only thing that I will do is, if the error,
if
it's
it were,
nil, I will just do this. So let me remove that semicolon here, and I will no, like this, early returns. That's what I like. I will say do this, and this will definitely then be always true. And we will just populate. Oh, that's just my fat fingers and a new keyboard. So now we
data, we squirrel it away. Okay.
Indeed, we will just say ns.sgv equals data plus sgv, and same for the other value that we would like to come up. There we go. So this is it. That's it, right? If we do this, we will fetch everything from the API, considering we did that right. And when we have the data, which is that single nice struct with everything that we need, we will just populate those values in there. So we can also adjust the string to then say I want to have SGV here in this case.
And then for direction, let's worry about that. One's going to be an interesting one, because I'd mentioned to you that I had some pseudocode to show you. These are the possible 7 choices that a segment can, that a direction can be. And what I did is I've got my blog post on when the first time I did this with Nate. And inside of that, this was done as a prompt in PowerShell proper. And you'll forgive me for this bit of PowerShell code. Don't be too offended, because it's not pretty. But it's basically that, right? So this is going to be in our context, ns.direction. And then it's like, if it's, switch, if it's this, take these glyphs kind of thing. So this is a bunch of pseudocode, we'll call that. I wouldn't know then, given what we're doing here in Go, would that be a template thing, or would that be a helper function? I think it's a helper function.
That's a really good question. So what I would do in this, there's quite a bit. Okay, so we could add that logic to the templates, but then we would be having quite a big template. Because it would say, if it's this value, then this I can do it. So we would rebuild the whole switch statement in the template, which can get quite cumbersome.
This is very typical. The only thing that sucks about this, from a Posh perspective, is I wish is there a single glyph for 2 arrows up, or that's a really good question, like a fat arrow up? You know what I mean?
Do you know where you can find these things?
Nerdfonts.com.
Nerdfonts.com has a really good search capability. So the icons button, we can have a look there. Now, the challenge is here, but we can worry about that later. If we can get it to work, I think we managed to do quite a bit.
One thing I wanted to show you, though, I think there's a needle in here. I'm very excited about what this is going to look like, because I'm going to go and put a needle in my prompt. This is going to be good. Okay, please continue.
That's a really good one. No, so in this case, I know I like templating functionality a lot, because it offers great flexibility to anyone who wants to customize their prompt. But if we have, what are they like? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different values. That's going to be quite a template. So let's not do that.
Agreed.
But it brings another element to the table. We would need to expose all of those icons when we actually want to, let's say, bring this out there, because people might want to customize their own icon.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're saying that we can do, I'm hearing you say we can do 3 things. Let me see if I get this right. 1, we hard code it and we tell no one.
Indeed.
2, we build an incredibly complicated segment template that gets evaluated every single time and provides more flexibility than necessary. Or we make icon types that are have defaults, reasonable defaults, but are configurable.
Yes, exactly. And in this case, I'd say the third option is the most sane one because it will speed our logic up and it will keep the configuration small.
Then what about the times where we have doubles? We just suffer? Maybe we just, they can't be
could
double.
add that. You could add that as a default. An icon is just a string. It doesn't really matter. So we define
I thought it was
them
a
as
char.
No, it's not. It can be anything. So we kept everything as a string, and it's also just a property, and a property is just a fancy string. That's all it is.
Lovely. So then that means
just like we defined URL, we can do that. But
down here,
for now,
I'll have up, flat.
Yes.
Well, that'll be sweet. That's lovely.
Yeah. So, and if you want to have the defaults, that's fine. You can work with that. If you feel like you want to override, you override. Doesn't really matter. And the trade-off I do is usually, if it's good 99% of the time as a default setting, then let's just do it that way rather than overcomplicating everything. So there we go. Yeah, so I would do the switch later.
Okay.
Let's have a look. So now we have Nightscout data.
Get the number, right? We're going to get the number at this point.
Unused. They're unused because why are they still unused in my view? So Nightscout, we actually added it there. Get results. You no longer have the squiggly lines. There we go.
Right, because the get result now calls it.
Yeah, and we added the struct to our initial mapping as well. So now if we build everything, it should be there.
There you go. Building, spinning around over here in the corner. Built. Switch back here. Enter. Hopefully won't do anything different. Should still be red. Now we just need we would add that segment now, yes?
Yeah, let's give that a try.
Okay. So let's change the session, one we correct?
Yes, that's the first one. So we could...
That Nightscout, program background. Now, do we have properties? We do.
Yeah, the URL, we have that one. Lowercase, I think.
Lowercase
this is still
URL.
pretty sensitive.
Okay, I'll take my URL from here. URL. Okay. What was our other one called?
We only have one.
We just have the one property?
Yeah, so the timeouts, etc., they're all inherited from somewhere else.
Yeah, we hid everything else. Okay.
Indeed. Yeah. That can be gone.
Get rid of the comma.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Oh, this is so I'm a bit nervous now.
If it works on the first time, we just shut the whole stream down and we're done, and we just win, and we But this will be good. Okay, here we go. Just hit enter; it'll work. Yes.
That's the assumption. Look, it worked.
It worked.
Oh, it worked. It worked. But what do we see? What do we see?
Oh, it got nothing, which means it failed.
It's hidden. Let's do write posh debug and see what we get. So we're in PowerShell, so that should be there we go. Enter. Ooh, exciting! There we go. So what we do, maybe
go back up and find
for everybody. All the way up, you can see. You can even go up. There we go. Oh, did we type it twice?
Here's the segments.
So there.
Where's Nightscout?
Pom pom pom.
It didn't find it.
Let me
that
quickly
means
check
maybe
what we
the
did.
segment thing did not figure out yet. Did I not save this?
It should.
I didn't save segment nightscout.go.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm such an autosave nerd that
yeah, it's my bad. Do I not have autosave on?
But it still should have found it. If not, we should extend the containers.
Because I think I forgot to press autosave. That's okay.
And the changes in segment should also be there. So.
Yep. So let's try that again.
Yep. We should did we rebuild? Yeah.
Do a build again.
Failed
terminal process go build failed to launch exit code 2.
Let's try
flag needs an I don't know what that was about. Flag needs an argument -o.
but it has a -o.
This might be some kind of I clicked on this button here.
Yeah.
It says compiles while overwriting. It didn't like that, so I didn't do that. I just did a regular Control-Shift-B.
Okay. I don't think he built it.
You don't think I did?
I don't know. Let's find out. It should be in there because we added it.
Yeah, because I'm not seeing it in here.
No, me neither. Let me double check what we did. Let me write
Hang on, though. I'm not seeing session in here either. So that implies that it doesn't like this type, right?
Is there a typo in there?
Nightscout.
That's really good. So we should look at the Nightscout verb, the first one. There we go.
Nightscout, lowercase, segment type.
That's all correct.
That's a segment type. This is all correct.
Yeah, that's all correct. So that should work.
Then we look down here. That's correct.
That's also fine. Yeah. Let me go to the README, see if we missed something. I don't think so.
Go back over here. We almost got it to work on the first try.
Oh, but it does something, but it's not exactly what we need. So we did the name. We made that struct. So that's been made.
I think the real question is the dev container build thing happening the way that we thought it's happening?
That might not actually replace everything. We've had that discussion too. I can check locally. Can I check locally?
Well, so here's the question, right? So which one are we currently calling, right? What's the date on this thing? So this one here is located where? How do I know what the executable is for this, who made that prompt?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's scroll up again because the version is printed. Yeah, so there you go. That's still the one we pulled in initially. There is a rebuild task, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they did mention that. Sure,
run build task is that one, and it's doing a go build. But then we have this button down here that says compiles while overwriting your pre-install. But when I click that, I'm getting an error, which is the way that this is configured. It's saying -o, and it says -o output. Why is it saying read link?
That's a bug. That's not okay. That's not going to work.
So let's go look at our VS Code dev environment stuff up here under tasks.
What we can do, Scott, if we know where the executable is, we can just easily rebuild it. There we go.
We can fix that.
So it's at user bin OhMyPosh. So that needs to be gone. I don't know why that one is in there.
You don't think that's
probably going to be a reason, but for PowerShell, it doesn't really matter. We can
what it's doing is it's trying to do an evaluation, and it's saying, go read that link and tell me where it really points to. Right? Do we know where it really points to?
It's a good question. Let's figure it out.
If we go user bin OhMyPosh, inside of here, figure this out. That's a thing, right? No. User bin. Yeah, there's no OhMyPosh over there. Okay, so then where's this one coming from?
Okay, type which OhMyPosh or where?
Which or where? I can never remember in PowerShell.
It should be which, but in PowerShell, I don't know. We're on Linux machine, right? So which should work.
Which should work, I think. Yeah, you're right.
You could just type OhMyPosh and it will evaluate where it's at. So let's find out. Where are you, my friend?
No, that's not going to work. I'm going to jump out of PowerShell. That's weird.
That's really strange. Seems like I have some configuration to do on how this all works. Let me...
where object? OhMyPosh. Everyone who's watching is thinking I'm typing slow. I can only type fast when no one else is looking.
Let's have a look. Oh, okay. I know why, Scott.
Okay, what do you got?
In the PowerShell profile here in the dev container uses the module. So if we want to, yeah, it does. So, but that's easy. That's easily solvable.
Well, we can always switch over to Bash, which is not
fine.
not finding it.
The problem is we can't even rebuild because it's trying to figure it out, so that evaluation is going to fail anyway. So we can stay on PowerShell, and I know where that executable is at. So if we were to look at our module base, so if we do get module OhMyPosh, we can edit that out or keep it in for the sake of troubleshooting. That one has. Can I also see the terminal? No, I can't.
I can share the terminal.
Can you? Is that possible?
The way that you share the terminal in live share, shared terminals, read only. You should be able to see the terminal.
Well, let me type it in for you. I'll just open my little shell here.
Don't want that one. Oh, it's marked as read only. Make read write. There you go. Now type in the terminal.
Okay. Wait, where is that?
Control. Yeah, you got it? Get the terminal?
Yeah, I got it.
You should be able to type. There you go. That's
okay,
you.
there I am. That's nice. That's me. It's not able to type. Oh, great. I ruined PowerShell.
Good job.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone.
There you go.
Let me make this a little bit bigger because I can't see anything. So we have okay. Oh.
There might be some weird ANSI stuff.
It's doing some weird things now.
Yeah. Maybe you just tell me what to type.
Yeah.
You can chat it in the private chat.
I will do that. I was on my way. So what we will do is we need to figure out where the modules are installed. So I type get module OhMyPosh, and then the module base. That's what will actually tell me where OhMyPosh is installed. Pasting it for you now. There we go. So that's the one.
Okay, got it.
So have a look at what's in the root folder of OhMyPosh. So without the, we can go in that direction as well. Yeah, there. Type ls. So there you have OhMyPosh, and that's actually the executable that we need. So we can override that one. So if we go back to OhMyPosh, navigate into the source folder.
Okay.
So the repository.
Source,
yeah, very well.
Now we're back.
And then go to src here. That's the folder where the Go source is. There we go. Now we can actually, it's pretty slow. Now we can do Go.
We could change it here.
We could also change it. Yeah, that's the O. So we remove read link, etc. There we go. And we add
like this, and then add one more.
OhMyPosh. Yeah, that's the one. So that's what I was going to do manually, but this is a better solution. So
I'm
now
just trying to add value.
You're doing a really great job.
In this language I've never written before.
It's pretty cool. So now we are going to actually rebuild the executable that is shipped in the module.
Okay, cool. So that means that was a mistake. I need to push this button down here.
Yeah. It's still using the old one.
It's using the old tasks.json.
Yeah, so we can type it ourselves in the terminal.
You're right. Okay. But yeah, basically if I rebuild, so for folks that are following along, I'd have to rebuild the dev container. The problem with that is that we would then lose our live share and he'd have to reattach, and that would waste 10 minutes.
So let's do go build -o.
Build -b-o.
And then that, it doesn't need to be quotes. You can add the path directly.
I can add the path directly?
Yeah, it's going to work. There you go. There's twice on my. Oh, no, that's correct.
Yeah, the first one's the directory. The second one is the actual.
Yeah, indeed, you're right. I've been working too much on Windows lately, and I'm always seeing.
Plus, you got up at 7 in the morning, which is nice.
True. Okay, so there we go. Now, if we write posh debug, because it should. And scroll. You see? So it's not enabled. And you see that the default timeout is hit. It's 20 ms.
That's too long. It's too short. We got to get maybe.
It's too short. We got to up it. So let's go to our theme configuration. That one. And that one is called, let me help you out here. It's the same as the one that was on the open weather map. HTTP _timeout.
Oops. That one's in a property, right?
Yeah, it's a property. Yeah.
Okay, let me go back up there. Sorry.
Don't worry.
It's hanging off of URL, or it's hanging down here?
No, it's in the properties space. So you type it above URL. So at or below, doesn't really matter. It's up to you. Timeout. Let's set it to quite a bit. Yeah, it's okay.
Something that's some time.
Yeah, and let's try again, just in the console.
This is very exciting.
At least it's working.
Yeah, man.
There we go. See?
Wow.
I'll give this a first time right.
That's hot. We didn't even have to like debug it or anything.
No, it's just there.
Coding gods.
It's just there. Yeah.
All right. So then let me guess. So we come back down here, right? I could say MGDL or text or whatever, right? That's not hard coded text.
Yeah. If you do it there, we need to recompile. But what we can do is just copy paste the value of the template. So that one, and we will also add it to the theme because we can override it because it's fetched live from the properties, and that is called template. So just like we did for HTTP timeout, if we now had a template property, there we go, and we just with the quotes, and we can add whatever we want, and just extend it with. You wanted the needle in there, right?
Oh yeah, let me get the needle.
Oh, outside of the curly bracket.
Yeah, I just gotta grab that needle though.
Can we copy it like that?
And then you can. This is probably breaking some rules here.
Yeah.
Outside the bracket?
Yeah, outside the bracket.
Double bracket.
So, yes, indeed, the double bracket is a convention, so that needs to stay. And then you can add the icon.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a little space. There we go.
Yeah.
And now just add enter on your and it should be there if we did everything correctly. So there we go.
Woohoo!
See?
That's awesome.
So
no one has made it this far. No one is watching, and I love this. Hopefully, people are learning a ton. I'm learning a ton. It took us 90 minutes. I was like, when I was talking to you yesterday, I'm like, this will take us about 30 minutes. No, there's a lot of good information here. A lot of good information here.
There's a lot of learnings as well into how we set up the dev container environment, because it needs to be a bit more straightforward.
Yeah, this is great.
But other than that, you see, adding this segment rather than walking you through it and explaining everything.
Yeah,
it's rather straightforward.
It is really. I mean, I get it now. Now that I've done this once, I could do this again in an hour and then do it again in a half an hour.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, usually it takes me like 20 minutes, and then obviously adding all of the tests.
All right.
That's still
so what I want to do
that
now
takes us time.
is I want to just at the end here. Remember, we had that direction idea.
Yes.
Direction is an internal thing, right? We talked about what our URLs, what our stuff looks like. Direction. But I need I want to call it like trend icon. Something, you know what I mean? Or like I want to output the icon.
Yeah, perfect.
That represents the trend. Okay. So that's actually not a thing now. So I'll save that, but it's not real. Trend icon doesn't exist.
Yeah, it will probably then fail on the template if
Yeah. So if we go over here and we hit enter, it'll just probably not show up. And then if we looked at unable to create text based on the template.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So we actually help you out if you make
so we'll leave that there until we fix it.
Yeah. So okay, cool.
Okay, we have our pseudo.
You can walk me through it now, because you should be able to figure it out.
We have our pseudocode here. Now, I know that I could go and write a switch statement with a bunch of defaults, but you said that there was examples that included.
So a good example here is the Git segment.
The Git segment has some beautiful icons.
I made the same trade-off there when it comes to upstream icons. You see? The upstream icons, you could say, okay, if my remote URL is this, I will populate that also in the template, but then it becomes a template that you can't read anymore. So I've recently added templating functionalities to the Git segment, which took a really long time, but it makes it really beautiful. But for these icons specifically, I said, let's define them separately and then create a simple switch statement, or if in this case, it's if else, because we look at the first part of URL. It's not a match on the string, on the entire string, but it's the same principle. So we do the same. So what we do, is we add that property that you just created to the Nightscout struct, so the segment struct, that we are able to also expose it to everybody. And then we create our helper function and we just populate it.
So then if I go like this, and I'm going to split this, I'm going to keep this over here just because I need to know about that.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to come back up here. What's nice about this, by the way, is again, for early in career developers to understand that, you know, Alt Tab is not your friend. Split screens, multiple panes. These are where things start getting really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then down here, I'm hearing you say I could go double up icon.
Oh, that's in the constant. So what we would do here is add the property that you just created also in the template. You wrote .trending icon, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, but here you've got the get struct with upstream icon.
Yeah, but that's the icon is just one icon. So in comparison with Git, the upstream icon could be the GitLab icon, the GitHub icon, the Bitbucket icon, whatever.
Oh, I see. I got you.
You see, so that's what we do.
It's these
don't worry.
here.
That's why you brought me along to,
yes, sir,
help you out.
Yes,
so yeah, we do the same thing there. There we go. So now we can create all of these properties for these trends, basically.
Yeah.
Double up icon. I always call them underscore icon as a sort of convention to have some.
Here's a funny thing. I know that if there was a Vim person or an Emacs person watching us, they would know that there'd be better ways to do this, right?
There is.
But, and do you know? Because I have a couple of ideas.
Yeah, what I always do,
Right.
It's,
now at this point,
walk me through it.
So I would hit, in this case here, I'd go like this, and I would go like this. I have one cursor, and I would press the cursor, and I'd go click, and then I'd hold down Alt, and I'd hit another click, right? I'm typing one word, and it's appearing in two places. That's one way to do it, right?
I learned something today. So.
You ever seen that before?
I did see it before. I never, let's say, invested time in figure. I always use the one I use, but that's in a different use case, is Command-Shift-L to rename or the same word in one file. That's what I always use, and a multi-cursor on the same line as well. But this one I never really put to use. So, and then obviously copying everything at once. That's all. Duplicating lines. That's very
in this
useful.
case here, like this is all wrong. So I can also do a square-shaped selection.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember if it's Shift, Control Shift, or there we go, like this. Where you go like that, and then type, and that's it's all so like the word down appears multiple times. So maybe I'll save myself some time.
Yeah, that's the one I always use.
Okay, the square shape, and then I is wrong. If I want it to be uppercase or lowercase.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
that'll save me a couple of seconds. It's not super amazing, but it's kind of cool. But inevitably, we end up just doing like this because who has the time, right?
Indeed.
And
but it's good to know because it has its use cases.
Oh yeah, but absolutely.
An actual Vim user would just.
They would be done by now, and they would have left us, and we would still be trying to figure out how to exit. But that's all right. They are better people than we are. It's been 25 years since I used Vim seriously. I used to work at Nike on big mainframes in 1997, and I would use Vim on a big giant gray screen. It was here's another thing I don't know how to do. I should be able to select that, paste that here, and then I can't remember the command for lowercase.
Oh, I always do Shift F1 lower, and
there you go, right? So I could go like copy paste, right? And then I can hit. You said Shift F1. I can hit Control Shift P.
Yeah,
enter. And now that it's one that I've done recently,
so
then I could go 45 up, do that, paste, Control Shift P, enter. Perfect. And then we stare, and this is the other thing, we stare at it for 5 minutes to see what copy paste mistakes that we've made.
I was doing that for you.
You were doing that for me? I think we're good.
Yeah, It's good. The only thing I would do is do underscore icon, because that's the convention that we have within OhMyPosh. That's all, and then we're good.
Cool. And where do we put the actual defaults then?
We put that in the helper function that we're going to create with the switch statement. So based on the snippet that you pasted there,
cool.
It's yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, so then this right here, we'll call that a trend icon, which is, I believe, what we called it over here.
I do believe so. Yes, there you go.
All right, cool. And then later on, you have a bunch of tricky things here in Git. Do you want to write that from scratch, or is there a particular helper function that you want to look for?
No, we can. In this case, it's completely different. We can simply write a switch statement.
Okay.
That's going to work. Maybe we should, yeah. If we keep the snippet on the right, we can write a function on the left.
We have direction. Now, direction is being pulled over from our data, but trend icon is a projection. It doesn't exist in the data.
Correct. So we need to create it. So what we do is, if we write like ns.trend icon equals ns get trend icon. Nice one.
helper. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't very helpful though.
It was not helpful.
ns.trend icon equals ns.get trend icon, and then we'll create that function. There we go. We don't need to add the not the semicolon.
Oh, I forgot C#.
Yeah, C#. We don't need to give it the direction because we already have that populated into our struct at that time, so we could actually work with it directly. So now we will create the trend icon function. So
I'm learning Go here, so I've never done this until today. So I'm making this up, and
this is cool. There's just one
that's
mistake, but it's perfectly fine.
And this is an in.
Yeah, that's indeed exactly. That's perfect. And now in the brackets, what you want is also add ns and then a pointer to Nightscout. So you have the line 49
up here.
function. Yeah, there ns space, just the same definition.
So is that being called? It's being injected in.
So now it's part of the struct. And it can call it because we typed ns.getTrend icon, meaning that function is part of the struct, so we need to define it as such. So what we can do now is we could create a var icon string, which is what we want.
So that's like what we're gonna,
or var icon property, even better. Oh no, we need to have the defaults, right? So yeah,
the defaults are going to, basically what we're going to do is the defaults are going to we can just hard code them here. We basically say, did the user have a preference? No, use ours. But the first issue is we're going to have to do this 7 times, right? So we're going to have this switch.
Yeah. So the easiest thing to do is then switch ns.direction, I think, right?
So this will be expression, which is going to be ns.direction, and it's
so we'll look at that.
Strings.
Yeah. So we have double up. That's the first one.
And then when you're in a switch here, do you just break, or does it break implicit in Go?
I return.
You just return.
In this case.
You just
in this use case, I would.
In this
return,
use case, just get out quick.
Oh yeah. In the case, so what we do is we return the icon. Suppose we have a match there with double.
Oh, okay. Well, then I can just go like this.
Yeah, you do ns.prop. Remove the. We want the default, right? So we do ns.props.get string because it's a string. So we know the icon will be a string. Okay, there we go. So you can see that it wants the property. We know we created that. So that's double up icon.
Okay, so here's a question, and this is more of a philosophical question. I know what some people are watching. Okay, they know what's coming. This is a piece of data. This is a string that happens to be English. But it's magic. It also happens to be, if we just said lower case and added underscore icon, a convention. How inappropriate is it to go and do something like that?
Depends.
Right?
It really depends.
It's kind of yucky.
So the reason is, as you say, it's a philosophical question.
It is.
Sometimes it feels really smart, but it becomes pretty ugly.
Yeah, we don't know. We know right now that that's English, But
Indeed.
do we know, but we also technically don't know. Does it ever return something else?
Yeah,
It really should be a
indeed.
number. But let's go
I
ahead and
like
do
that.
this.
I like that switch statement because it will also allow us to return a default icon in case something isn't matched. So we make it very explicit. We need a property name, so not the string, but we just say double up icon as the.
Oh, do we use the one on the left? Because you're right.
Yeah,
Because
we
we're
use
getting
that one exactly. Yeah, so
we have to
want
pass
that.
it as a string though. That's kind of unfortunate.
No, you don't. You don't. You can just remove the string value. Just add the property. There we go.
Because it's a
And then
const.
yes, indeed.
I
And
got
then you can do a colon, and then you can add the default icon that we want. So in this case, that was double up. Oh no, in the function itself. Let me help you out.
In the function itself.
Yep. Let me.
Oh, get string. We'll get it, and if it doesn't,
There
it's not
we
overridden.
go. So
Beautiful.
okay, so that's it. So now we just do that multiple times for all of the icons, and I also propose, but Go will hate you for it if you don't do it at a default.
Our default will be just.
That's just
space.
Default. You write default, and then you return
do nothing.
whatever you like. That's just a simple. Yeah, there we go.
And we never speak of it.
Yeah, we silence it.
He's silent. Okay. All right. So then we have our bit of whatnot here, and then we do a little of this action.
Yeah, indeed.
Boop, boop. And then people judge us, and they say, "Who are these professional programmers that are doing such aggressive copy pasting?"
It's the fastest way.
At least they're impressed that we can talk while simultaneously writing code, which is a thing now that people do on the Twitch streams. And
true.
I'm going to be excited.
Still learning that part.
I'm going to be excited to see what kinds of cool iconography people come up with.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel some kind of way about that double down, because that means that, in the reason I feel weird about that is that it's going to make the segment change size. It's not a reliable size, but I'm going to worry about that later.
But the Git segment has the same behavior based on branch name or whatnot. We only need to change the properties now still, and then we're good to go. So,
oops.
Oh.
I
would just have autocomplete help me out here.
Yeah, so autocomplete's not helping me. Let's try it again.
Yeah, I had the same issue before.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Took me a second. I think it's because my machine's working pretty hard right now. It's screen sharing, it's running the container, and you're also connected to me.
True.
So it manages you as well.
That's good. I need to be managed. Let's and then double down.
Beautiful.
So that should be roughly it. We also made sure to have it work. Yeah, we did that in the enabled function. So let's rebuild this.
Okay, waiting for this thing to. I think I intuitively hit Control-Shift-B sometimes. That's my Control-S, and that was a mistake because we already came up with a better way to do this.
Yes. Yeah, so we need to rebuild it manually, but
down here.
We have that one.
So I'm going to move you over here.
Perfect.
And then I'm going to build that directly.
Yeah. Exciting.
It is. I'm having fun. This is super good. I think this is going to help a lot of people learn. Oh, dude.
Look
at that.
First time right.
I'm going to add. It's beautiful. Remember, my friends, I said that I was going to eat an apple, and I'm going to sacrifice my blood sugar for a few hours here in order to show you the reality. See, so if we look over the last couple hours here, now you can't really tell, but see this says correction bolus. It kind of came up and then it's trending back down. So even though I didn't tell my body about the apple, it'll come back down in about 30 minutes. But we have been watching it. It was 180 a minute ago, and now it is 175. If it was down, that'd be like an airplane, like, oh no, pull up. This is kind of flat. So now I'll maybe take some action and I'll do something about that. So then where would you put the color? And then we're done, man. This is beautiful.
So for color, let's have a look at, so we have the theme open. What we have, if you scroll down, we can take the hit segment as a as a sort of guide. There we go.
Oh,
so you see the background
that's
templates.
interesting. Okay,
That's
hang
basically
on.
it. So you can copy paste that one and we will adjust it accordingly.
Okay, this is really interesting. I was ready to go off and write some more Go.
No,
But what you're
we're good.
doing here is making an extremely clever background template. So I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to say background template, and then I'm going to say if SGV, GV, I don't have to say or.
We can do the second ones, the third one is greater than. So you
Want
could
to just
do,
borrow these two?
Yeah, you could borrow that one. So say it's over or between.
Okay, so if SGV, if it's over 150, I'm going to want to have it be, that's kind of yellow. And then if it's below, that's more of a thing. So let's say FF, red, green, blue, red, and green. So that'll be that. And then let's say SGV, if it's lower than 50, no, lower than 60. These are blood sugar numbers I'm thinking about. That's going to be red. So it's going to be red, green, blue. And then I want a else, which is going to be the default color. How do I else this in your template?
You can else if in this case you could add a one at the bottom that just returns a color, just a color.
Just a color.
Yeah, because what it then does, it evaluates sequentially. So it's the first one, the second one, third one, and if there is a match, then it will just use that color. Or the else could also just be your background, your default background color, because that's the one that it will default to anyway. So
do I just go like this then and just have a color sitting inside?
No, you could just add a string. It doesn't need anything special. So the curly brackets are for specific functional logic. So in this case, the greater than, the less than. But if you just want to return a string, that will also work. You don't need to build it again. Yeah. There we go.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, so now you see that I'm colorblind.
Yeah, well, that's not just you. That's everybody. That sucks for everybody, man.
So what I then do is we also have foreground templates. So you could say, look, if it's that yellow, I maybe want the text to be black. So let's just do that as well.
You have an
you
example?
Could just copy paste the block. Yeah, you can copy. I don't think there is one in here. I have one on my own theme, on my own laptop. But it's the same thing as what we did for the background templates. So you can copy paste it, but then rename it to foreground templates.
Oh, smart. Okay.
Yeah.
These can be ones that we can ship in the docs.
You're in the Git segment now, Scott. Don't worry.
Now I'm getting tired.
No, that's fine. Yeah, it's getting pretty late.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll have brunch soon.
Yeah, think so.
So
foreground templates, and then
so if it is going to be, I think it probably want to be black then. Well, hang on. Let me see if this will look good in all color. Black will be the color.
Oh, then you can just add it to the foreground color.
Yeah, then I'll just change the foreground, but I can foreground template the same thing. You know, I'm going to put it in foreground templates. I'm going to put it in foreground templates just for educational purposes.
That's a good one.
That's the way people can make their own decisions, because they're going to immediately see the same thing and get confused.
Do me one favor and remove the space between the curly bracket and the hex value at the end.
This one here that bothers you?
Yeah, there's a space. Yeah, on both. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I think we trim, but that's definitely something I might need to double check.
Never assume a trim.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Look at that. That's hot.
Nice. That's pretty amazing.
Okay, now really quick before we go, because I'm going to go and write a whole blog post about this. Let's just do some testing, and I know I'll write some tests later or something like that. But what we need to do is take the part where we actually populate it and just hard code some data. Okay. Let's see a low blood sugar.
Yep.
That should be red, because red for danger. Now, which kind of colorblind are you? The Durotanope or the Tyrannonope, or which one of those?
Strong Juten, so that's Durotanope, I guess. Yeah. So red is nice.
Yes, love it.
See?
Okay, and then let's have a good blood sugar. So exciting. Having this on there is going to be so nice. I used to have this, and I just got tired of configuring the Windows service and everything.
A prompt is basically also sort of a service. You hit enter, and it just
Yeah, it
shows
really
you
is.
all of this information. Okay.
Okay, so 100, we
It.
got an error.
I think the API said, let's go over 500.
Try again. Yep.
See?
So here's the question. If I let's make sure that we configure the cache to like 5 minutes then, because I'll forget about that before we go. What is the default for the cache?
We can have a look. Let me check together with you.
HTTP timeout is, oh, that's different from the cache.
That's for doing the actual request here.
Right.
And in the code itself, we have the scroll down.
Sorry, I want to just make sure I put this back before I forget.
In Nightscout at line. So cache timeout is there. The default cache timeout is set at 10. Let me have a look.
That's default where though? That's not me. That's somebody else. That's shared deep in the system.
Yeah, it's shared, but it's a general setting.
Config. It's 10.
10, and it would have been really useful to have the number there, but I think that's this.
Yeah. So for Nightscout people, it will always be 5 minutes, and the reason is that the blood sugar system can only ever tell me every 5 minutes. There's no such thing as more than 5 minutes, or less rather than. So I could just change that and hard code it.
Yep.
So this here could go away.
Let me have a look.
And then in another, I'm thinking about myself, what I'm going to do when I learn more about this is I'm going to say if it's stale or not. So like if I haven't gotten data back in an hour, then I'm not going to put a number that I can't trust. So I'll say 100 and I'll say stale because that could be your blood sugar yesterday. We don't know, right? There's all kinds of cool options we can have here.
Yeah.
What is it mad about here? I guess it didn't like the dollar equals. There we go. What's
yeah,
the colon equals mean?
Colon is an assignment. So you need the colon equals because it's a new variable, like cache timeout didn't exist yet. So you need to it would be the same as writing var cache timeout int and then giving it a value with equals. But
it got mad when I did that though, because I didn't make it an int.
No. That should just work. Why?
It's upset with me.
Let me check for you.
While you're doing that, I'll try to build it. See if the.
Let me check what cache timeout. No, it works for me. So
right,
it's
well, then
just
they're mad about something undefined.
It's the DevContainer. It's probably the DevContainer.
No. I spelled it wrong.
Oh,
capital O.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
there
see that. Yeah. Okay. Now
my
it's
bad.
fixed. Yeah.
Okay. Cannot use cache timeout type int as type int64. They don't like me casting that, so I do need to cast it to an int.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's minutes?
That's a good question. What I was about to say. I need to double check what it's about.
Because it feels silly to have an int64 in minutes. That could be the.
Yeah, that's definitely idiotic, silly. But let me figure that out for you. We can do some improvements in that area as well.
I just want to make sure that I'm not setting that to milliseconds.
Could be in my head. It would be milliseconds, to be honest, or seconds at least.
There we go. Yeah, I'm not. That doesn't feel cached. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3.
No, it's
yeah,
not
it's
cached.
definitely not cached.
No.
So you're thinking that's milliseconds? Okay, so 60 times 5 is 300. 300 times 1,000, 300,000. That would be minutes. No, 5, 60. 300 is how many seconds in 5 minutes? Plus 3. 3. 1, 2, 3. 30,000 milliseconds is 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's in minute. It's in seconds. The time to live. What we do is But I see that's
Okay, so then
it
300 then.
it was a good idea when we wrote it at the time, but it should actually just be pretty straight. And I
But did
thought
you
we
say it is in
documented
seconds,
somewhere.
not milliseconds?
Yeah, the time to live. What we do is, and I'm double checking.
Mhm.
So we get the time to live, which is just an integer, and then we multiply it by 60, which it's seconds, so it's a minute.
I'm
Should
not
be
getting a
1 minute.
cached vibe on this thing at all. And the reason is that I'm not feeling that this is cached is get
Because it
result
takes a
is
while,
happening.
right?
No, here's what I think is going on, and you correct me if I'm wrong. But get result, maybe you're running through the cache, but you're calling on enabled. So you're saying enabled get result.
And then it
Get
checks if it
result
should.
comes down here, pulls it out of here.
Yeah.
Cache timeout is always going to be greater than 0. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
This
It's
is always
indeed,
that number right there that I just
that's always
hard-coded
going to
with
be
300.
true. Yeah, that's always going to be
This
true.
is always going to be true.
Yeah.
So then it'll never do any caching.
Yeah. I think
I was overthinking this here.
We in our copy paste, yeah, it fetched it from the what it did is it fetches it from the properties, right? That's what we commented out. So we'll look at, is there a cache timeout set? If there's one set, then obviously I want to look in the cache.
Right, and
so that's where the greater
right
than 0 comes from. Now, if we hard code it, it will always go straight there, but it needs to find a value. But we can double check that later as to why it didn't store it.
So the question is here, though, we did it and then we bail out here, right? So we're assuming that this is always going to be that number. It's going to go and get it out of the cache. If it's found, cool. Else,
then I will get
down
it and
here,
bring it back. Yeah.
We put it into the cache where? When do we shove it into the cache? Cache timeout here, set right there. Yeah. Okay, let's make sure that we're using the right keys. The key, this is a get on cache key response, but this is a set.
We've changed the key.
We set the key. The
Remember,
key is the URL.
To the URL, indeed. You're actually right. Yeah.
The URL
and then we need
didn't
to
appear
put
until
URL
here.
To the top.
That's got to go up.
Indeed. You're exactly right.
Now we're cooking with gas. Okay. So I'm going to make that 5 because I'm just hard coding that. Now we have the same key. Now we'll feel like we're getting some cache behaviors.
Yeah. Or we crash because we didn't do the parsing.
Yeah, or the whole thing goes to hell. All right.
Let me quickly also go there.
Yeah, it does get a little, you can feel it. There's about a 12, I want to say 1200, 1500 milliseconds there. When you're doing expensive things in your OhMyPosh, you're going to pay the price, and we want this to feel snappy. No.
There's also the Git segment that might be.
Well, let me remove
but
that.
No, it's on Linux, so it should be smooth.
This is something else.
Do me a right Posh debug, and then we can see what it does. Otherwise, we would just debug.
Yeah, we'll just guess. This is a great point. You can just keep doing it and expecting a different result, or we can just go up here and we can see. And we're going to see.
What does it do? So
it is Git.
No, it is. Yeah, and it's cached. Look, Nightscout.
Oh, you know why it's Git. You know why it's Git. Here's why it's Git. It's because I'm in a dev container with a volume mount, and I'm jumping in and out of Windows and whatnot.
That's going to be expensive. Yes.
So let's go ahead and we'll temporarily turn the Git one off.
But you can see that already in the execution times.
There's 0.
Nightscout is at 0, so it is using the cache value.
How do I turn this one off?
You can't do it. You need to remove it. That's something I've been. It only happens when you're debugging. It's not an end user feature.
Pew, 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 pew. It's fast.
See, it all works according to expectations.
That's lovely.
Now, in terms of documentation, I had 2 notes. So the dev container needs to be checked. It would be interesting for contributors that, and I think end users as well, that we indicate like what are the units here, because even if we had to look through it, that's not going to help anyone, and we can definitely simply facilitate that.
Okay. So we have made a change inside of the dev container we don't want to lose, which is this segment description.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, for writing this up and also putting an example and setting it up for myself, I don't want to lose that. Otherwise, when this dev container goes away, it's over for me.
Yes.
So
What you
this
can
segment
do
here
is in the documentation, or at least the contribution guide, it also mentions writing the documentation for your newly created
I'll
segment.
do that tomorrow.
So we always include a sample as well if you look at the segments.
Down here, I'll do the add your documentation and create a markdown file for the segment.
Exactly. So you can copy paste your created segment configuration in there that highlights like the coloring, etc. So people can get started right away.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've just succeeded dramatically, sir.
Only
There's a lot of good work to do, like MGDL and other things. But now I think people are going to learn how to do really sophisticated segments. And we've made a great segment for the community. So I will, I'm on vacation this week, actually. This is my fun vacation. I like this kind of stuff. My wife's like, why are you working? No, this is not work. This is good stuff.
Yeah,
so
we
I'll
have the
finish
same
this
conversations at home.
I'm
looking forward to seeing your PR. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, this is brilliant. All right, my friends. Thank you for sticking with us. That took 2 hours and 10 minutes, 4 times more than I thought it would. And that's why I'm a very bad estimator. And that's why we call them Hansel minutes instead of regular minutes. So if I ever tell you it's going to take 30 minutes, you can say, is that a Hansel minute or a real minute? But thank you, Jan, for hanging out with us. And I want to make sure that everyone knows that they can go to OhMyPosh.dev, and this is where you learn all of this stuff. You can get started, and hopefully, I think you and I had talked, Jan, that maybe this would inspire you to start making some videos and teaching us some of this great stuff. So we're looking forward to seeing that. You can contribute, you can get involved, folks, and you can also send Jan a coffee. So thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight. Bye-bye.